somebody like myself is deeply sceptical about the French's commitment to stopping small boats coming across the Channel, no matter how much money we give them. Should we just stop giving the French money because nothing's going to happen, is it?
I don't think that's quite true. I think what changed was the fact that the city of Calais tried to get rid of some of the biggest sort of problem areas in the place called the Jungle. Which was much worse than the retention centres, for instance, for which Mrs. Braverman was accused. And what the result is that now the migrants are spread alongside the coast, and you've got about 100 miles of coast where little boats can leave. So it is very obvious that you need more people to police it, and it's a difficult thing to organise. There also has been no incentive because there was bad blood, to be honest. As a figure of speech, not actual blood, but still there was bad blood between the French and the British government, and it is likely that it's going to change now.
Can I just pick up on this? Because Emmanuel Macron threatened to cut the power off to Jersey during a particular energy crisis. I think that was over some scallop fishers, right? We've also had strong allegations that Emmanuel Macron may have stolen some AstraZeneca vaccines that were destined for the arms of, presumably at that particular time, quite elderly British people right at the height of the coronavirus pandemic. He called our former Prime Minister a knucklehead. He's taken somewhere in the region of about 60 to 100 million quid's worth of British taxpayers' cash and, as far as I can tell, not really done anything when it comes to stopping the migrant boats. I'm not being funny, but I think Emmanuel Macron might be an enemy.
Well, no, an enemy is Vladimir Putin. Second, everything you've said is true. It is not the same thing at the same moment, and it's not in the same way. For instance, on AstraZeneca, you're quite right and quite accurate. On other things, it was French minister. It was the French minister for the sea who threatened during things. It's not the same thing. She was actually reprimanded afterwards. But in a sense, was there a sort of prickliness between France and Britain? Yes. And some of it was because the French felt there's no reason why we should help Britain because Britain has got as much against us. And Boris Johnson, to name him, was saying exactly the same things about France in this sort of oratant, funny way that he has, but still it didn't work so well. And the idea is that now you've got some, Rishi Sunak is the grown-up in the room, which makes a difference in terms of talking with him, as we were seeing right now in Sharm el-Sheikh. And also each wants something of the other, which was not necessarily something that Boris Johnson wanted. There is politics in this. It looked very good. I mean, being French, I perfectly understand, because I've been brought up in England, that it's enjoyable to bash the French, and you don't bash the French, you wait to bash. So it's not the way you bash the Germans, for instance. There's always a twinkle in the eye. So I take this with a great deal of a massive rock of salt. But it's right now, they're both in a difficult situation. They want to get there. They speak the same language. They're the same type of guy, more or less the same age, the same education, the same kind of career.
The same height as well.
And they can talk the same language at a moment when Emmanuel Macron is in a bad political situation and Rishi Sunak is at the basically last chance saloon.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder if we could make Emmanuel Macron's political situation a little bit worse for him, actually, by towing some of these boats back into French waters. I mean, this could be a huge problem for Emmanuel Macron if we decided to do that, because if we're not getting value for money, right, then actually, I'm sorry, but surely the rules don't really apply. We're lobbing a load of money France's way. They're not, it would seem, really doing much with it. Well, we're not going to play by the rules then. Here you go, have some boats back.
Nobody has been playing by the rules for quite some time, assuming that there are rules. But the situation in France is France has a migrant as well. We perfectly understand it. At the French-Italian border, the French are not exactly playing with the EU rules because it's not supposed to be a border because it is within Schengen, but strangely enough, you've got many customs checks all the time, even in the mountains around the French-Italian border. So it's not that we don't have problems. And Britain sees the migrant crisis because they all come from the same place, basically, which is a small area in southeast Britain. And in France, we've got a coastline, we've got got 3,000 miles of borders, and they come in from it's much more diffused, but the figures annually are just as bad as in Britain. It's not something that we don't understand.